Welcome, dear brave listener. You're tuning in to Careful TV, and I'm truly grateful you're here. Whether you're tuning in during the day or late at night, thank you for choosing to spend a part of your time with me. If you enjoy these stories, don't forget to like the video and subscribe. It really helps the channel grow and means more than you know. I'd also love to hear from you in the comments. Tell me where you're watching from, what brought you here, or even what kind of story you'd like to hear next. Your support keeps this channel going, and I appreciate each and every one of you. Now, let's get into today's horror story. In the spring of 2022, my sister left for a short trip to coastal Oregon, and we haven't heard from her since. Her name is Erin, 43, mother of 2 grown kids, freelance wardrobe stylist, and probably the most determined person I've ever known. She lived in Sacramento, California, but she had this thing about water. Anytime life got too loud, she'd take a weekend off to head toward the coast. Crescent City, Eureka, sometimes even all the way up to Astoria. Salt air was her reset button. So when she told me she was flying to Newport to unwind for a few days, I didn't question it. She deserved a break. I'm Tara, by the way, her younger sister by 4 years. Erin and I talked almost every day. Nothing dramatic. Just check-ins, jokes, photos of the cats, voice notes when she was stuck in traffic, that kind of thing. We'd been through a lot together. Divorces, job changes, the passing of our mom 2 years ago. We weren't just sisters. We were each other's constants. So when she stopped answering texts, I knew something was off. She'd mentioned she might meet someone while she was there. Not in a giddy, butterflies kind of way, just casually. Some guy she'd been talking to on a dating app. I didn't know his name. She never told me much beyond the fact that he had a boat and had invited her for a day on the water. Don't worry, I won't get murdered. She texted with a laughing emoji. I told her to share her location with me when she left the dock. She said she would. That was April 16th. Around noon that day, she sent our dad a photo. It was of open water, hazy sky, the edge of a sail in the frame, and part of a handrail. No people, just the calm gray sea stretching out ahead. She captioned it, "Guess who finally got on a sailboat?" That was the last message anyone received. Her return flight was booked for April 18th. She never boarded. We checked every airline, called the hotel she was supposed to stay at. Nothing. No checkout record, no sightings, just silence. At first, we assumed maybe she extended her stay. She'd done that before. But a day turned into 2, and her phone went straight to voicemail. That's when I reported her missing. The Newport Police Department was polite, but slow. They said adults have the right to go off the grid. I pushed harder. I sent them the sailboat photo, screenshots of our messages, her travel itinerary. They said they'd look into it. I asked if they could track her phone. They said it had stopped pinging around 1:18 p.m. the same day she sent the photo. From the marina, we'd later learn. I flew up 2 days later and walked that dock myself. The marina workers remembered her. Blonde woman in jeans and a light jacket carrying a day bag. Said she seemed calm. She met a man near one of the private slips. Older guy, tall, scruffy beard, dark jacket. They didn't recognize him, said he didn't seem like a regular. We pulled security footage from the parking lot, but the marina cameras were old, grainy. You could barely make out faces. We showed the image around town. No one knew him. He hadn't used his real name to sign into the guest book. The sailboat she boarded registered to someone who died 3 years ago. The owner's nephew had reportedly been trying to sell it, but no active records showed who had access to it. Then on April 21st, a sailboat matching the description was spotted docked near a Coast Guard station in Florence, 2 hours south. It had been left unattended. Locals said they saw a man on it the previous afternoon, but he was gone by morning. The Coast Guard towed it. Police inspected it. No trace of Erin, no signs of struggle, just a damp towel, an empty coffee cup, and a few personal items, none of which belonged to her. That was the first and last lead. Weeks passed. Flyers went up. Erin's story made the local papers, then national headlines for a brief moment before attention faded. People speculated online. Maybe she ran off to start a new life. Maybe she drowned. Maybe she never got on the boat. All those maybes felt like acid. I read them anyway. But none of it made sense. Erin wasn't impulsive. Not with things like this. She would have told me, hell, she told me when she changed shampoo brands, and she wouldn't have just disappeared. She had clients waiting for her back in Sacramento. She had 2 cats. I've written grant proposal on her desktop. She'd already bought groceries for the week she got home. And she was excited, really excited about a wardrobe contract for an indie film she'd just signed onto. I don't believe she left voluntarily. I don't believe she ended her own life. That photo she sent, it was bright, hopeful. She looked forward to that sailboat date. She trusted that man, and that man hasn't been found. No matching photos, no real name, no arrest. The police won't confirm whether they think he's responsible or if they're even still actively looking for him. They just keep repeating the investigation is ongoing. We've hired a private investigator. They're the ones who confirmed that the name he used on the app wasn't real. His account had been deleted the day after she vanished. And her phone? Still off. No activity. No trace. It's been over a year now. We hold out hope, but most days we just hold on to whatever pieces of Erin we have left. Her voice in old voicemails, her plants, which I've tried to keep alive, her cats who still sit by the front door like they're waiting. I don't know what happened out there, but someone does. Someone knows what happened on that boat and why a vibrant, driven, kind-hearted woman who just wanted a breath of fresh air never came back. Her name is Erin Monroe. She was last seen on April 16, 2022 in Newport, Oregon. She is 5'7", 145 pounds with light blonde hair and hazel eyes. If anyone knows anything, even a small detail, please come forward, because silence doesn't make someone vanish. People do. I hadn't gone on a real date in almost 3 years before I met Owen. It started on Hinge, nothing too special. His profile was filled with the usual stuff: hiking photos, a shot of him and his dog at a brewery, some half-decent banter in the prompts. I wouldn't say I was blown away, but he was normal. And after everything I'd been through, normal sounded like exactly what I needed. My name's Dana, by the way. I'm 31 and had just moved to a small rental outside Asheville, North Carolina. I'd left Charlotte after a long, messy breakup with a guy who turned out to have a second girlfriend in Atlanta. I didn't want a rebound. I just wanted to feel like a person again. And I guess, to test the waters. Owen and I texted for a week before deciding to meet. He wasn't pushy. He cracked enough jokes to keep it light, but not enough to come off try-hard. We even did a short video call one night. That felt reassuring, seeing his face move, hearing his voice in real time. He had a bit of a nervous laugh, but seemed genuinely interested in what I had to say. Our first date was at a dog park bar. He brought his dog, a black lab named Jasper. I didn't have a dog, but I liked dogs. We met on a Thursday afternoon, and it went really well. Like, I'm actually smiling the whole drive home. Well, he asked if I wanted to hang out again over the weekend. I said yes. The second date, we went hiking at Craggy Gardens, a popular trail, lots of foot traffic. We brought snacks and sat on a rock ledge overlooking the mountains. We talked about our favorite movies, our weirdest jobs, his years in Denver, my college summers in the Outer Banks. It was easy. There was a moment when I noticed him watching me quietly. Not in a creepy way, it was more like he was trying to memorize something. I asked what he was thinking. "I'm just glad we met," he said, kind of shyly. "I don't know." That did something to me. Nobody had looked at me like that in a while. The next couple of weeks we kept texting. Sometimes I'd go a full day without hearing from him, but he always got back to me. He said he worked construction and odd handyman gigs, so his schedule was unpredictable. I didn't push it. I appreciated that he wasn't blowing up my phone 24/7, and when he was around, he made me feel seen. About 3 weeks in, he invited me to stay at his place for the weekend. It was a cabin he said he was renting near Pisgah Forest, said it was temporary while his lease in West Asheville ended. I'd seen some photos and it looked cozy. Wood paneling, a fireplace, big porch. Very Instagrammy. I hesitated. Not because I didn't trust him exactly, but because something about spending a night in the middle of nowhere with a guy I'd just met still felt risky. My best friend Jules told me to share my location and send her a check-in text every few hours. I promised I would. Friday evening, I packed a weekend bag and left around 5 p.m. The drive wasn't bad, but it got dark fast. The roads narrowed into those winding 2-lane tree tunnels that never seemed to end. My cell service dropped about 20 minutes from his place. I took the last left turn onto a gravel road just as he described. The cabin was up on a ridge tucked behind a thicket of pines. There weren't any other houses nearby, which I guess was the point. He greeted me on the porch with a glass of wine and a fleece blanket already draped over one of the chairs. "You made it," he said, leaning in for a hug. He smelled like cedar and laundry detergent. I was starting to think you'd flake. "Nope," I said, trying to sound casual. "Just had to survive the Blair Witch backroads." He laughed. "Yeah, it's pretty remote out here. Peaceful though, right?" It was peaceful. That part was true. The inside of the cabin was just like the pictures, a big open living room, small kitchenette, a stack of books by the fireplace, some vintage lamps. Jasper came over and nudged me with his snout until I pet him. The dog was friendly, quiet, but a little too watchful. His eyes never really left me. We ate reheated chili and drank more wine, talked for a couple hours. It all felt relaxed. But around 10 p.m., things shifted. I couldn't exactly tell you why. Maybe it was how quiet it got outside. No bugs, no wind. Maybe it was Owen's tone when he asked if anyone knew I was here. "You tell your friend you got in okay?" he asked, casual on the surface. "Yeah, I texted her before I lost service." He nodded, staring into his drink. "You trust me?" That question. The way he said it, soft but insistent, made my stomach tense. "I wouldn't be here if I didn't," I said. He smiled. "Good." After that, we watched something on Netflix, but neither of us paid much attention. I was tired, and the wine had hit me harder than I expected. He set up the couch with extra blankets for me, even though he said I could sleep in the bedroom if I wanted. I appreciated that. I lay awake for a while, listening to the wood creak under the wind. Jasper slept at the foot of the couch, his head resting on my ankle. At some point, I must have dozed off. When I woke up, it was still dark. The clock on the wall said 3:27 a.m. I wasn't sure what had stirred me. Maybe a noise, maybe just that weird awareness you get when something feels off. Then I heard footsteps. Soft, careful, from the hallway. I froze. Jasper lifted his head, ears up. I held my breath. The footsteps stopped just outside the living room. "Hey," I called, trying to sound normal. "Everything okay?" No answer, just the tick of the clock. I sat up and pulled the blanket tighter around me. "Owen?" A moment later, he appeared in the doorway. His silhouette looked strange without context, shoulders hunched, hands down at his sides. "Didn't mean to scare you," he said, voice low. "Bathroom's down the hall. I was just checking on you." That struck me as odd. "I'm fine," I said. "Thanks." He nodded and walked back into the hall. I lay there staring at the ceiling, trying to calm myself down. I didn't want to be paranoid. He could have just been checking. Maybe he thought he heard me get up. Still, I didn't fall back asleep. The next morning, he made coffee and eggs like nothing happened. I acted like I'd slept fine. I wasn't sure what else to do. I tried texting Jules again, but the message wouldn't send. When I said I might head out earlier than planned, he didn't seem surprised. In fact, he offered to pack me a few snacks for the drive. I thanked him, and he walked me to the car. "Drive safe," he said, one hand on the car door. "I will," I said, trying not to look nervous. Jasper stood on the porch watching us, tail still. I pulled away and drove back down that winding road, heart pounding harder the farther I got from the cabin. It wasn't until I was 20 minutes out that my phone lit up with texts. Jules had been blowing me up since midnight, missed calls, frantic messages. I pulled over and called her back. "Jesus, Dana, where the hell have you been?" she said. "Why didn't you answer?" "I didn't have service," I said. "I'm okay now. I just left." There was a pause. "You sure?" "Yeah," I said. "Yeah, I think so." She didn't sound convinced. I didn't blame her. I didn't feel convinced either. That week, I stopped hearing from Owen. No texts, no social media activity. I checked the Hinge app. His profile was gone. I didn't know what to make of that. I did end up looking into the cabin, used some real estate sites, plugged in the address he'd given me. The property had been vacant for over 6 months. It was listed under a property management company, and their last tenant moved out in February. The lock code Owen gave me matched the one from an old online listing. He wasn't renting it. He didn't have a lease. I reported it to the local sheriff's office. They said they'd look into it. But without a crime, there wasn't much they could do. I don't know who Owen really was. I don't know what would have happened if I'd stayed a second night, or if I hadn't woken up when I did. But what gets me the most? When I went through the bag of snacks he packed for me after I got home, There was a plastic Ziploc inside. It held a handful of trail mix, a granola bar, and a worn dog tag with the name Team Jasper etched on it. The metal was scratched, old, the chain snapped off like it had been yanked. I never saw that dog again. There's a moment you don't realize is important until you're far past it, when you look back and think, that was the fork in the road. For me, it was a Thursday night when I swiped right on someone I shouldn't have. His name was Jordan. That's what it said on the profile, anyway. We matched on Hinge. I was living in St. Louis at the time, fresh out of a breakup and trying to get out of the house again. My roommate kept encouraging me to get back out there, like that was supposed to fix things. I'm Casey, by the way. I was 29 then and working remotely for a healthcare nonprofit, which mostly meant long hours alone in my apartment, toggling between spreadsheets and pretending my microwave dinners didn't taste like regret. I wasn't exactly looking for anything serious, just someone to talk to, maybe grab a drink with. Jordan seemed safe, normal. His profile was clean, no typos, no weird flexes, just a guy who liked hiking, stand-up comedy, and cold brew coffee. His photos were normal too. Well lit, not overly polished. Something about the way he smiled, kind of lopsided like he knew he looked awkward, made me feel like he wasn't trying too hard. Our messages started casual. He asked what my dog's name was. I told him it was June, and he replied that he loved border collies, which wasn't right because June's a mutt, but I let it slide. We messaged for 3 days before he asked me to dinner. Nothing fancy, just a taco place in Tower Grove. Public, casual, I agreed. I told my roommate where I was going. I even shared my location just to be safe. It's funny how much we normalize that, women telling each other, just in case. It didn't feel dramatic, just smart. When I got to the restaurant, he was already there, waiting by the hostess stand. He stood when he saw me, and I noticed he was taller than I expected. Same dark hair, same lopsided grin. He wore a plain hoodie and jeans. Harmless, I thought. Dinner was fine. We talked about our jobs, family stuff. He said he was in tech, something with automation systems. I asked what kind. He got vague, just shrugged and said, back-end optimization stuff. I didn't know enough to press further, so I nodded. The conversation kept drifting. I carried most of it, to be honest. He was charming, but in a way that never went deep. He deflected every personal question with a joke or a compliment. I told myself I was just rusty. At the end of the night, he asked if I wanted to go for a walk. It's still early, he said, checking the time on his phone. I know a park a few blocks down. There's a little duck pond. I hesitated. I get it if you're not comfortable, he added quickly. Totally cool either way. That made me relax a little, someone who respected boundaries. That's rare. So we walked. Tower Grove is a nice neighborhood. Quiet at night, a lot of trees, some older houses. As we turned the corner away from the taco shop, the street got dimmer, fewer porch lights. The sidewalks narrowed and the noise from the bars faded behind us. We talked about music. He liked old indie bands, The Shins, Band of Horses. I mentioned Phoebe Bridgers and he smirked and said she was a little much. That stuck with me for some reason. The way he said it. Like he knew what kind of girl listens to her and maybe didn't like that kind. By the time we reached the park, my feet were starting to ache. I was wearing boots that looked better than they felt. He led us toward a bench near the pond and gestured for me to sit. I did, cautiously. He stayed standing. We talked a little more, but I could feel a shift in the air. He wasn't smiling as much. His posture changed, more rigid. He kept glancing down at his phone, like he was checking the time but never unlocking it. My stomach tightened. Eventually I said, I should probably head back. He didn't argue. Sure, want me to walk you back? I paused, then said, no, that's okay. I'm just a few blocks down. He nodded, then leaned in for a hug. I stiffened, but didn't pull away. It was quick. Then he turned and walked off down a side path without another word. I waited until he was out of sight before I started back. The weird thing was, when I got back to the restaurant to grab my car, I noticed his truck was still parked across the street. I stood there staring at it, trying to make sense of the timeline. Had he looped back, or had he never left? I told myself I was overthinking. I got in my car and drove home. I didn't sleep well that night. June kept barking at the window. The next morning I woke up to a text. Had a great time. Would love to see you again soon. I didn't respond. A few hours later, hope I didn't weird you out. You seemed a little off at the end. I still didn't respond. Later that evening, another one. Can I be honest? You kind of wasted my time. I blocked his number. That should have been it. But the following day, I noticed an Instagram DM from someone named J Systems. The message said, "You block me, but you still post your lunch like we're friends?" I immediately blocked that account too. Then came the email. To casey.arlane@gmail.com. Hey stranger. Next time you try ghosting someone, make sure your Venmo doesn't list your full name. Pretty sure I found your LinkedIn too. Cute photo. I don't remember typing. I don't remember calling my roommate into my room, but the next thing I knew, she was sitting beside me reading the email out loud while I just stared at the screen. We filed a report with the local precinct. They said it wasn't illegal unless he made an explicit threat. That there wasn't much they could do. 2 days later, I came out to walk June and found a sticky note on my windshield. You look different without makeup. That's when I left town. I packed a bag, grabbed June, and drove to my brother's house in Kansas City. I didn't tell anyone except my roommate. She agreed to stay at the apartment to monitor any activity. She even installed a small security camera in the window. A few nights after I left, she called me. "Casey," she said, "I think you need to see this." She sent over the footage. At 3:43 a.m., a man in a black hoodie approached the building. He walked slowly, casually. He didn't knock. He didn't try the door. He just stood there, looking up at the windows for a long time. Then he pulled something from his pocket, looked like a phone, and took a photo. And then he walked away. I filed another report, this time from out of town. Still, there was nothing the police could do. He hadn't trespassed. No direct threats. "You should change your passwords," the officer told me. "Make everything private." I deleted my dating apps, changed my number, locked all my socials. But for weeks, I couldn't shake the feeling that I was being watched. Every parked car made me nervous. Every ping of a notification made my stomach drop. I started having dreams, some mild, some awful. In one, I was trapped in my own apartment with him standing at the window, smiling like nothing was wrong. Eventually, the messages stopped. Or maybe he just lost interest. That's almost worse, because now I don't know if he gave up or if he's still watching, just quietly. My brother told me I should talk to someone, and maybe I will. But right now, I'm still just trying to sleep through the night without double checking that all the doors are locked. There's this saying my mom used to have, "You can't control the world, just your little corner of it." But I think even that's too generous. Because sometimes, no matter how careful you are, someone still finds a way in. And once they're there, it's not your corner anymore. I've never been one of those people who jumps into things blindly. If anything, I'm the friend who overthinks, double checks, and sends 3 texts before even opening a dating app. But it turns out even careful people can get caught slipping, especially when the wrong person knows how to play the long game. My name's Drew, by the way. I was 26 when this all went down. Still trying to get comfortable in my own skin, especially after coming out a few years earlier. Dating as a gay guy in a new city was already a mental game, but I figured if I kept things casual, nothing could go too sideways. It happened during this weird stretch of loneliness. My job had just gone remote, I'd moved to St. Louis for a fresh start, and I didn't know anyone in the city yet. The days blended. Wake up, answer emails, eat something frozen, repeat. I thought trying something new might help. So I downloaded Clover just to see what was out there. No expectations, just maybe someone to talk to. His name was Nathan, or at least that's what he called himself. He was 32, supposedly worked in logistics, and said he traveled between Missouri and Ohio, managing warehouse contracts for a mid-sized supply chain firm. I only remember that because I Googled it at the time. It checked out on the surface. He was charming from the start, not in a flashy way, more like someone who knew how to mirror people. He didn't overshare, but made you feel like he was being open. He dropped just enough vulnerability to draw you in, like telling me he grew up in foster care, bounced between homes, and finally got adopted by an older couple in Dayton when he was 11. They were good to him, but strict, religious, that he moved out at 17, got into trade school, and then started climbing the ladder wherever he could. It all came out so naturally, I didn't even question it. We talked for a week straight before meeting up. He offered to drive into the city and take me out for dinner, said he was staying nearby for work anyway. We met outside a restaurant in Midtown, and he showed up looking like he stepped out of a catalog. Slim fit jeans, dress boots, a long gray coat. I remember thinking he looked too polished for someone who claimed to work in shipping logistics. The date felt like a movie. He opened every door, paid for everything, asked me questions like he already knew the answers. I found myself opening up in ways I didn't expect. We walked around the park after dinner, talked about travel, music, childhood, those broad, emotional topics that make people feel close fast. He told me I had an old soul, said it like it was a compliment, but something in the way he said it made me feel observed. Still, I ignored the twinge. He kissed my cheek at the end of the night and told me he wanted to see me again soon. I didn't hesitate to say yes. That first date was the only time I saw him in person. What followed was a blur of texts, calls, and over-the-top gestures. Within days, he was sending links to watches he thought I'd like, talking about trips we could take together, and one morning I woke up to a confirmation email for a spa weekend he'd booked for us at some mountain resort in Tennessee. I hadn't asked for any of it. I joked that it was too much, that he didn't need to go so big. But he brushed it off, said he just wanted to treat someone right. He'd been with people who didn't appreciate him before. Said I was different. I wanted to believe that. But something didn't sit right. He never let me call him spontaneously, always said he was in a meeting or somewhere loud. His photos were all solo shots, mostly taken on hikes or in hotel rooms. I asked once if he had siblings, and he gave me a strange answer: none that I talk to anymore. It's complicated. That phrase came up a lot with him. Whenever something didn't add up, his schedule, his past, anything, it was always complicated. Eventually, I got curious enough to start digging. I didn't want to be paranoid, but I couldn't shake the feeling that I didn't really know who he was. His Instagram had only a few recent posts, all very curated, no tagged friends, no family. When I asked for his last name, he gave me Ward. Said it fast, like he expected me not to ask again. I searched it anyway. Nothing came up. Not in my state, not in Dayton. No LinkedIn, no high school records, nothing that connected to the version of him I knew. Then I did something I've never done before. I used Zelle's Pay ID system. I sent him $1 as a joke and waited to see what name came up on the other end. It wasn't Nathan Ward. It was KN Robbins. That's when the bottom dropped out of everything. I didn't confront him at first. I just kept playing along, smiling through the texts, asking questions here and there to see if he'd trip up. He kept up the act, told me he was finalizing things for the Tennessee trip, asked for my shoe size because he'd found these perfect hiking boots he thought I'd love. I kept all the screenshots. Then I reverse searched his number and found a burner account on Facebook. One friend, no posts, but a profile picture that looked like it was taken in a different decade. I checked the image on Google and found it attached to a wedding registry in Colorado. His name was Kevin Robbins, married, had been for 7 years. I was stunned. Not angry yet, just numb. I dug deeper, found the wife's LinkedIn, her Facebook, photos of their house, even a small business she ran out of their garage. She looked happy in the photos. She looked unaware. I thought about messaging her, but I didn't. Something told me it wasn't time. I didn't want to be part of wrecking someone's life without being absolutely sure of the facts. So I asked him to send me a photo of his ID. Said I needed it for the hotel check-in when we got to Tennessee. He took a day to respond, then sent a blurry photo where most of the information was conveniently covered with his thumb. But he messed up. I could still make out the birth year, 1981. He wasn't 32, he was 42. I stared at that number for a long time. My hands were sweating. I felt stupid, like I'd fallen into a trap with warning signs painted in red. I decided to flip the script. I told him I had to travel last minute for work and wouldn't be able to do the trip after all. He said he understood, but sounded disappointed. Told me he'd already bought everything, that he was heartbroken, but would wait until I got back. That's when I sent the text. I know who you are. He tried to play it off, said, "What do you mean?" with the fake innocence of someone who's done this too many times. I told him I knew about the wedding registry, about the real name, about his age. I didn't say how I found it, just that I did. He ghosted for 3 days, then came back with a voice memo. I couldn't even listen to the whole thing. He started talking about his past, about how he never meant to lie, how things got away from him. I deleted it halfway through. But I wasn't done yet. I gave him an address in a small rural town 3 hours south of St. Louis and said I'd meet him there to talk things out. Told him I wanted closure. Said it was a place I went to get off the grid. He took the bait, drove all the way out there, texting the whole time. Said he was nervous, but hopeful. When he got there, he sent a photo of the sign outside an old motel. "Here," he wrote. I blocked him on everything. I sat on my couch, wrapped in a blanket, sipping chamomile tea while watching reruns of The Office. The thought of him standing in a parking lot in the middle of nowhere, waiting for someone who never planned to show up, it didn't bring me joy. But it did bring closure. I never messaged his wife. Maybe I should have. I still don't know if she ever found out what he was doing behind her back. But I saved everything, just in case I ever change my mind. What I do know is this. There are people who build whole identities just to slip into your life unnoticed. They don't scream. They don't chase. They study. They learn what you want to hear. And if you're not careful, they'll take more than your time. They'll take your trust, twist it into something you don't recognize. And when they leave, you're the one who's left wondering how much of it was ever real.